Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly update from the National Urban League's Washington Bureau. I'm Don Cravins, Jr., the Executive Director, and it's good to be with you once again. Well, last week in Washington and early this week in Washington have been very eventful. We saw Pope Francis come in and have a wonderful visit, and we also saw the government shutdown issues come to fruition, as well as the resignation of our Speaker of the House. And so let's talk a little bit about the government shutdown. It looks like a government shutdown will be averted this fiscal year, which ends on today. And it looks like both the Senate and the House will send a clean continuing resolution. Clean meaning it will only be a stopgap measure. It won't contain anything else. They'll send a clean continuing resolution to the president for his signature. So what does that mean? Well, that means that December 11th, because the resolution only is good until December 11th, that means on December 11th, we're going to be back to where we are again today, where Congress is going to have to decide, is it going to send the president a budget to fund the federal government? And so we talked a lot about those effects and the detrimental effects that a government shutdown can have on the United States and on its citizens. And so we could be right back here again on December 11th talking about a government shutdown. But Speaker Boehner, before he resigns from the United States Congress, promised that we would get a resolution passed and that government would not shut down. But that leads me to my next topic. Congressman Boehner, Speaker Boehner, is resigning from the House of Representatives. He's not only resigning as Speaker of the House, but resigning as a congressman from the United States Congress. And so that took a lot of people by surprise, particularly because the day before he was with Pope Francis and he was very much involved with Pope Francis's visit. He's a very devout Catholic. And so he's leaving. He's leaving Congress. His legacy will be one of much discussion over the next couple of weeks. But what it has done is opened up a vacancy now for Speaker of the House of Representatives. And as you know, the Speaker of the House is a very, very important and very, very powerful position, third in line for the presidency, and really is a leader in our United States government. And so who will be the next Speaker of the House is the big, big question. Right now, there's a two-person race, and that race is between Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Dan Webster of the great state of Florida. And so you're going to see both Mr. Webster and Mr. McCarthy really getting their votes together, getting the members of the Republican caucus together, and trying to see who can get the votes necessary to be the next Speaker of the House. Now, when Mr. McCarthy decided to run for that job, that opened up the second position, his current job, the Majority Leader, which is also a very important position because the Majority Leader of the United States Congress sets the agenda. And so there are two men running for that seat as well. Steve Scalise of Louisiana, someone I served in the state legislature with, so I know Steve very well as Congressman Tom Price from Georgia. Those two gentlemen are building support. A lot of commitments have come out very early, and so it's going to be interesting to see who the next speaker will be, and equally as interesting to see who the next majority leader will be. So stay tuned on that. We're going to be bringing you updates. That vote could happen as soon as this week on Thursday, or it could happen right around the Columbus Day holiday. So stay tuned for that and keep following that race. Also, want to talk to you about two of our great affiliates who came to Washington this week to do some advocacy. We always encourage you to come to Washington and to advocate on behalf of those issues that are important to you. This week, we had a lobby day related to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the ESEA, which you may remember both the House passed a version of the ESEA, the Senate has passed a version of the ESEA, and now the bill is in conference, meaning that both sides have to get together and work some things out in the legislation. We at the National Urban League have been very interested in this conference report because we want the final version, the version that eventually makes it out of Congress and makes it to the president's desk, to have some strong civil rights protections, which are not currently in the versions of the bill. And so we had our good friend, Sean Bradley, who is the CEO from Denver, Colorado. He was in town yesterday and was advocating on behalf of our position, as well as some good friends of ours from our Philadelphia Urban League, who's under the great guidance there of Rosalind McPherson. So she sent some members of her team down as well. And we encourage any of you who want to come to Washington to lobby, to advocate, please do so, and please consider the Washington Bureau as an extension of your office. Also, you'll see on our weekly update that the White House wants to hear from you. the White House has this big push on worker voice to make sure that workers in America, their voices are being heard. And so if any affiliate out there wants to take an opportunity to host a worker voice summit in your area, please do so. Go to our website, go to our update, and you'll get more information, a toolkit on how you can host a worker voice summit in your area. And then last but not least, I wanted to give kudos to our wonderful Secretary of Education for the United States Department of Education, Arne Duncan. Recently, I got a chance to speak on juvenile justice reform on a panel at the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference. And we talked about an issue that many of you know, that if you took the billions and billions of dollars that we spend annually on incarcerating our youth and took some of that money and instead used it to educate our youth, we could really turn around some of those terrible statistics that face our young men and our young women. And so I'm proud to say that today, and I was very hopeful and enthusiastic to watch the Secretary Duncan today deliver a speech on that issue. And it's good to see that he and President Obama are continuing this attention and focus on incarceration, early childhood education, and stopping this prison pipeline that has just really destroyed generations of young African-American children. And so thank you, Secretary Duncan, for your work in that area. Thank you, President Obama, for continuing that fight. Ladies and gentlemen, please read our weekly update. A lot of great things. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Thank you for what you do in and for the movement.